Authentic U.S. military badges with occult-themed insignias. See more here. A recent article from Wayne Madsen reminded us of a child pornography ring in the 1980s that extended from Oregon to the San Francisco Bay Area over to Chicago and Washington, D.C. This involved many officers of the U.S. Navy and yet another breach in a subnetwork, which the author believes was covered up by one John Lehman, then Secretary of the Navy, who engaged in similar cover-ups, sexual misdemeanors and crimes. Madsen has since had to vacate his U.S. home due to death threats. 1. Profile LRH_film JPG. L. Ron Hubbard. The Navy has an odd history of pathogenic infiltration. The advances from MKULTRA experimentation permeated the U.S. military and in particular naval intelligence. A former Navy officer with serious mental problems, which lent themselves to the creation of Scientology, was L. Ron Hubbard and his rocket scientist friend, Jack Parsons. These men may have helped to subvert still further the military rituals of Navy personnel. Both were involved in Aleister Crowley's Black Magic Society Ordo Templis Orientis, OTO, which was attracting many converts from government, military and corporate sectors of society. Now it seems the organization has new recruits from the social network generation which, until recently, included Peaches Geldof. How's that for marketing? Hubbard was said to have been drafted in by the Office of Naval Intelligence, ONI, to break up a satanic cult that was spreading among top scientists, with Parsons as the focus of the activity. It seems highly dubious that Hubbard was given the job of foiling such a ring, should that even have been possible. Perhaps this had been the initial operation, but whether during or after his assignment he played a vital role in either the creation of, or expansion of said cult rather than its disbandment. With the inspiration of Crowley's integration of various sets of magic, Hubbard and Parsons were engaging in their own magical studies by 1946, including an extended set of sex magic rituals, called the Babylon Working, intended to summon a goddess or moonchild. 2. Parsons continued to immerse himself in Crowleyan rituals, believing he was the Antichrist, only to die in a suspicious accident a year later. Meantime, Hubbard was about to write Dianetics, which swiftly became the basis of Scientology itself, rooted in black magic as a consequence of Hubbard's fascination with the Book of Law and Thelmic rituals. After Crowley's unceremonious death in 1947, the role of the beast was wide open. According to Ron DeWolf, Hubbard's son, his father, took it upon himself to fully embrace Satanism, not as a form of worship but to understand that he himself was one with Satan. This realization came from the creation of what they call embryo implants, getting a demonic spirit to inhabit the body of a foetus. This would derive care of black magic rituals, including the use of hypnosis, drugs, and other destructive practices. One of the important things was to destroy the evidence if you failed at this immaculate conception. That's how my father became obsessed with abortions. 3. An axe to grind? Or was there truth to his son's accusations? Regardless, it seems Hubbard, Parsons and other participants were happily riding high on the infusion of narcotics and magical practices that were busy doing the rounds on the intelligence's circuits. Hubbard is unlikely to have found his brainwashing techniques from anywhere else. He used the workings of occult rituals and nuggets of mind control secrets going on at the time to launch his career from a failed science fiction writer to a global multi-million-dollar icon, creating the hugely successful religion of Scientology. The U.S. Navy's role in sex espionage and ritual abuse was explored by Kay Griggs in 1998 with an 8-hour interview conducted by Pastor Rick Strocketer in 1998. Kay had married Colonel George Griggs in the early 80s. Her husband was a Marine Corps Chief of Staff and head of NATO's psychological operations, which over time had given her an intimate knowledge of the true nature of leadership training, drug running and weapons sales, and the secret worldwide camps that trained professional assassins. Her story further supports the increasing evidence that blackmail, sex rings and mind programming rituals are endemic within the military intelligence world. It also allows us not only to understand why the military is obsessed with sex as a means of control, just like their Israeli counterparts, but why there is such a resounding silence on the cover-up of 9/11 when truth inevitably seeps out through the cracks of official culture. Blackmail and sex are the fail-safe modes of secrecy. The more extreme the sexual deviancy, the more certain is the guarantee of silence. Kay Griggs videos. Or visit Disclosed TV. Kay Griggs, Colonel's wife, tell all interview. 1/4. Kay Griggs delivers a highly believable account based on her own observations, the people she met within these social circles and from her husband's behavior, but most importantly, from the extensive writings in his diary. While her Christian belief only occasionally veers towards proselytizing, her account is a sincere and honest one, enriching our understanding of how the U.S. Army and Navy intelligence networks operate behind the scenes. When she began to receive death threats due to this first-hand knowledge and her unique insights into this military cartel, she decided to go public in 1996. Sarah McClendon, former senior member of the White House Press Corps, an Army intelligence veteran, took her in and gave her valuable advice as to what her next move should be. McClendon was the perfect ally, offering her the needed psychological tools to survive the coming months and years. After Griggs had failed to get the media to take on her story and after McClendon advised Griggs to go public, this led to the now well-known video interviews with Pastor Struckiter on his 500-watt pirate FM station at 99.3 in Lenawee County, Virginia. The interviews were released in 2000 as a 2-hour edited video and later an extended 8-hour version. Since that time, Kay Griggs has been living in her Virginia home, giving occasional talks for interested parties. In the interview, Griggs talks about key military officials who were rather worried about her husband Colonel George Griggs and his diary, which is still in her possession. Brigadier General James R. Joy, Ret. General Charles C. Krulak, General L. Gray Cook, Ret. General James L. Jones, General Charles E. Wilhelm and General Carl Steiner are all implicated in secret black ops, one of which led to the highly suspect killings of civilians in the Waco massacre and the 1983 bombing of a Beirut barracks, in which 241 Marines died and 80 seriously wounded. According to Griggs, both examples employed media manipulation and PSYOPs to cover the fact these were false flag operations. General L. Gray, USMC, 29th Commandant of the Marine Corps, is an alleged enthusiastic participant in gay orgies within the military and at the time of writing is still actively engaged in PSYOPs operations overseas and nationally. Many other high-ranking officials have participated in these ritual sex initiation rites. The video also supports the evidence that organized blackmail is not just a MOSSAD speciality but a way of life within the U.S. military special operations units. Linked to this are the university fraternities which, like several authors, she confirms are recruitment centers for intelligence officers. Princeton University has a fraternity called Cap and Gown, while Yale University has the not-so-secret society Skull and Bones, both of which list a who's who of the rich and famous. Senator John Kerry, George Bush Sr. and Bush Jr. were all bonesmen. Griggs recounts her husband's history as a member of the Cap and Gown, where unusual sex acts were part of initiatory rituals designed to recruit and control participants. Dining in, Shellback, the Tailhook and Cherry Marines are not just military terms but code names for group sex activities, which are part and parcel of a homosexual induction. Young men are allegedly stripped, violated, humiliated and raped. Although the alleged orgies in question are predominantly homosexual, there were also bisexual orgies. General L. Gray, General Jim Joy, and General Sheehan were initiated Cherry Marines and given the task of indoctrinating new recruits for a wide range of useful purposes. While part of a standard formula for blackmail and mind control, this also serves as a means for rapid advancement through the ranks if you play the game. It has a high cost, however you become shadow government property and prone to emotional overload as the heavy weight of a suppressed conscience returns. The layers of programming, designed to dehumanize, don't always strip the individual of their soul and they become the walking dead, unable to escape their fragmented mind. Consequently, many law enforcement and military personnel go off pop for precisely these reasons. It would seem that if you begin to question too much, the Army and Navy have facilities for using psychiatry as a means to detain those who become too vocal or manage to free themselves from programming. Eastern State Mental Hospital in Williamsburg is one such place that is alleged to have a high quota of Army intelligence personnel who have not played ball. Sectioning is a convenient method of removing troublesome men who ask too many questions. 5. Wayne Madson's claim of a high-level X-file secrecy standing for pedophilia and homosexual blackmail protocols within the U.S. Navy and Marine Corps is given further support from Griggs. It is improbable that Griggs' husband would have shared tidbits of information regarding these bizarre rituals if they didn't have a high percentage of authenticity. The revelations over the years of serial pedophilia networks in the world at large are an obvious reality, so it is hardly logical to assume that even worse takes place far from prying eyes. Nazi philosophy, weapons technology and the sciences were not the only things to be injected into the United States psyche from Operation PATERCLIP. Another strain, which may have come through this conduit, was known as the pink triangle, an infestation of occult-driven sexual deviance, which included rapists, criminals and pedophiles. The individuals were tagged with a pink triangle before being sent to concentration camps during wartime Germany. Homosexual men and women were tragically included in this persecution, something which is seldom remembered. However, the key issue here is sexual psychopathy regardless of orientation. According to Griggs and others, thousands of these pink triangle candidates were brought over to the States and distributed within the ranks of certain shadow government projects. 2011.04 Pink Triangle 300x177 underline thumbs see Pink Triangle. Griggs' testimony is not the only source that suggests gay sex dominates much of the ritual initiation process within the Navy, SEALs and Marine Corps. Despite the Nazi Party's opposition to homosexuality and persecution of gay men, homosexuality may have been partially institutionalized within the Nazi elite in Germany at the time and focused within the SS Guard. Obviously, this does not preclude the murder of thousands of homosexuals. The formula of scapegoating a minority in order to maintain the functioning of an elite that harbors the same sexual orientation continues to this day. Whether we refer to pedophiles or homosexuals being compromised to take the heat of establishment figures, or Zionists who routinely sacrificed Jews and Gentiles alike to maintain the long-term strategy of their plans, the same-sex espionage continues its sordid path. The Weimar Republic during the 1920s, as with much of establishment circles within Europe in general, was host to a rising cabaret culture amongst artists, writers and the elite, which included a subculture of transvestites, bisexual, and gay men and women. As is ever the case, decadence gives rise to greater extremes and the underworld is not long to follow. Brothels, pornographers and prostitutes were multiplying in Berlin as one of the most sexually liberal cities at the time. Gay culture was thriving. Yet the dark underbelly of these seemingly liberal values was also present. Exploration of sexual identity and freedom wasn't the issue in pre-war Weimar as with other pre-pathocratic empires. Rather, it was the red flag of sexual deviance and debauchery that was a marker of a pathological indulgence to which the Nazi elite happily encouraged it. The Netzlocals, private night spots, in particular, teamed with non-German speaking thrill seekers. For the news clientele, humiliation and sexual degradation served as an equal attractant as the old naked dance review itself. In one local, favored by Dutch vacationers, businessmen and their wives tossed foreign coins to any female German in attendance, willing to strip completely nude. Outside the tourist hotels and downtown pensions, knowing gigolos and pretty boys, dolled up in rouge and mascara like wax mannequins, displayed their androgynous wares. The merry-making Ausländer, Berlin was conducting a clearance sale on human flesh. Sex was everywhere and obtainable on the cheap. The Kaiser's Germany, in the minds of many, was finally repaying its war debts. Melbourne, the voluptuous panic, the erotic world of Weimar Berlin. Courtesy of Metal on Metal, the degeneration of the new society in the Weimar Republic is quite apparent with a rise in Bohemian art which became darker and darker from the period after World War I, culminating in the Nazi pathocracy of the Third Reich. Sexual depravity, murder and the general denigration of women even led to a new art form of snuff painting where the female form was mutilated or an act of murder was graphically depicted as a form of sadistic celebration. Otto Dix and George Grosch were two of the most enthusiastic proponents of sexual murder or lustmord in German. In a disturbing book about the Weimar Republic's burgeoning avant-garde and sexual liberation, Lustmord, Sexual Murder in Weimar Germany, author Maria Tatar states, often viewed as the birthplace of a transgressive avant-garde modernism, where representations of female sexual mutilation abound. Tatar show that male artists openly identified with real-life sexual murderers. George Grosch posed as Jack the Ripper in a photograph, where his model and future wife was the target of his missive, but she also reveals the ways in which victims were disavowed and erased. 6. This aestheticized violence was funded by a transgressive energy which seeped into the socio-political life of the German elite. There appeared to be a simmering undercurrent of pathology surfacing in the collective unconscious of the Republic. Certain of these shadows were about to manifest as National Socialism. Otto Dix Lustmord. Otto Dix Lustmord, 1922. Dix Mordra. Karl Hofer Lustmord, 1923.